Welcome to Insibook. Do you ever feel stressed, exhausted, and running on empty? You're not broken. You're burned out. In this Insibook summary of burnout, Emily and Amelia Nagoski reveal the science behind why we stay stuck in stress and how to finally break the cycle. This is more than self-care. It's survival. If you're ready to reclaim your energy, this one's for you. We've all been there. That crushing weight, the feeling of being utterly depleted, running on fumes with seemingly no end in sight. It's that state we call burnout, a pervasive exhaustion that seeps into every corner of our lives, leaving us feeling numb, overwhelmed, and disconnected. It feels like hitting a brick wall, suddenly unable to move forward, trapped in a state of perpetual overwhelm. But what if I told you that burnout isn't a sign of weakness or a personal failing, but rather a biological response? What if it's simply the result of a physiological process, the stress cycle, that hasn't been allowed to finish? Imagine your body as an incredibly sophisticated biological machine, equipped with an ancient, powerful system designed to keep you safe. When you encounter a threat, whether it's a real danger like a speeding car or a perceived threat like a looming deadline or a difficult conversation, your body springs into action. This is the stress response, often called the fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your breathing quickens, and your energy is mobilized. Your autonomic nervous system, specifically the sympathetic nervous system, kicks into high gear. This is a necessary and brilliant survival mechanism. It prepares you to face the danger, escape it, or freeze in place until it passes. But here's the crucial part. This intense activation is designed to be temporary. Once the threat has passed, your body is meant to return to its baseline state of calm and restoration, governed by the parasympathetic nervous system. Think of it like digestion. You eat food, your body digests it, and then it moves on. The stress response is similar. It activates, does its job dealing with the threat, and then it completes. It winds itself down, releasing tension, lowering heart rate, and returning you to equilibrium. The problem arises when this cycle is repeatedly interrupted or left unfinished. In our modern lives, threats are often chronic rather than acute. We might face a stressful job situation, relationship difficulties, financial worries, or the constant barrage of information and demands from the digital world. These stressors don't typically involve a charging lion that we can physically fight or flee from. Instead, they are persistent, ongoing pressures. Even worse, we often get stuck thinking about the stressor, replaying scenarios, worrying about the future. This mental rumination keeps the stress response activated, even when the initial trigger is no longer present. Every time you experience stress and your body activates the stress response, but you don't complete the cycle, you don't signal to your body that the danger has truly passed, a little bit of that stress energy remains stored. It's like leaving the gas pedal down after the light turns green. Over time, these uncompleted stress cycles accumulate. Your body is constantly running, perpetually poised for action, but never getting the signal to relax and recover. This chronic, low-level, or sometimes high-level activation wears you down. It depletes your resources, disrupts your sleep, impacts your mood, weakens your immune system, and eventually leads to that feeling of hitting the wall. Burnout. Burnout isn't just feeling tired. It's a deep exhaustion born from the body's sustained, unresolved stress response. We often feel guilty about feeling burned out. We might think we're not handling things well, that we should be stronger, more resilient. We might try to push harder, to just power through, believing that more effort or sheer willpower will overcome the exhaustion. But this is precisely the wrong approach. Trying to push through when your body is signaling distress is like trying to run a marathon with a broken leg. It doesn't fix the problem, it only makes it worse. The very act of ignoring your body's signals and continuing to exert yourself when you are depleted is a major contributor to the uncompleted stress cycle. So, how do we get stuck in this loop? Why is completion so difficult? Part of the answer lies in how we are socialized, particularly the messages often directed at women. We live in a culture that frequently equates busyness with importance, self-sacrifice with virtue, and exhaustion with dedication. There's often an implicit, or sometimes explicit expectation to be the good enough woman, capable of excelling in career, family, relationships, social life, and personal well-being, all while maintaining a cheerful demeanor. This creates a relentless pressure to juggle, to manage, to care for others, and to suppress our own needs and discomforts in service of maintaining harmony or meeting expectations. This pressure often manifests as taking on an excessive amount of responsibility, particularly emotional labor. The work of managing your own emotions and the emotions of others. We might find ourselves constantly anticipating the needs of others, smoothing over conflicts, remembering birthdays, planning events, and generally ensuring everyone else is okay, often at the expense of our own well-being. We learn to prioritize the needs of the group, the family, or the workplace above our own, believing it's necessary or noble. This constant outward focus leaves little room for checking in with ourselves, acknowledging our own stress, and giving ourselves permission to complete the cycle. Furthermore, the way we process stress is often filtered through our thoughts and beliefs. If we believe that showing vulnerability is a weakness, or that asking for help is a burden, we're less likely to engage in activities that facilitate stress completion. We might tell ourselves, "I don't have time to relax," or "It's not that big a deal," or "I shouldn't feel this way." These thoughts, often internalized societal messages, prevent us from acknowledging the stressor and therefore prevent us from completing the cycle. We get stuck in a cognitive loop, ruminating on the problem, which keeps the biological stress response humming along. The result of all this, the uncompleted biological stress cycles, the societal pressures, the cognitive patterns, is that feeling of being perpetually overwhelmed, hitting that immovable wall. It's a state where your energy reserves are critically low, your ability to cope is severely diminished, and even small challenges feel insurmountable. You might experience symptoms like chronic fatigue, insomnia, irritability, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, a loss of motivation, and a feeling of detachment or cynicism. It feels like your very system is failing. But here's the hopeful truth. Understanding the mechanics of the stress cycle and recognizing how we get derailed allows us to intentionally bring ourselves back into balance. The key is completion. We need to find ways to signal to our bodies, both biologically and psychologically, that the threat has passed and it's safe to relax. This isn't about eliminating stress entirely. Stress is a natural part of life. It's about learning to navigate the stress cycle effectively, ensuring that each activation is followed by a return to baseline. How do we achieve this completion? The good news is that the solutions are often simple, intuitive, and deeply human. They involve engaging our bodies, our minds, and our connections with others in ways that help release the built-up tension. One of the most direct ways to complete the stress cycle is through physical movement. Remember how your body tenses up in response to stress? Moving your body helps to physically discharge that pent-up energy. This doesn't necessarily mean intense exercise, although that can be very effective. It can be anything that involves rhythmic, repetitive motion. Think about shaking out your limbs, going for a brisk walk, dancing, stretching, or even just walking up and down the stairs. These movements help signal to your nervous system that the physical crisis is over, allowing the tension to dissipate. Crying is another powerful, albeit different, form of physical release. Tears, especially stress-related tears, can help regulate the nervous system and signal safety. Similarly, laughter, particularly hearty, unrestrained laughter, is a fantastic way to release tension and shift your physiological state. Social connection is another vital component. Our bodies are wired for connection, and often the stress response is activated by perceived threats to our social bonds or by the burdens of social responsibility. Sharing your experience with someone you trust, talking about what's stressing you out, can be incredibly effective. This isn't about finding someone to solve your problems, but rather someone who can offer validation and empathy. Hearing someone say, "That sounds really hard," or "I can see why you're upset," sends a powerful message of safety and belonging to your nervous system. It helps counter the isolation that stress can often bring. Physical touch, like a hug from a loved one, also plays a significant role in activating the calming parasympathetic nervous system. Creative expression and mindfulness offer another pathway. Engaging in activities that absorb your attention fully, allowing you to enter a state of flow, can interrupt the cycle of rumination and stress. This could be anything from painting, playing music, gardening, cooking, writing, or engaging in a hobby you love. These activities provide a mental break from the stressors and allow your nervous system to shift gears. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation or simply focusing on your breath for a few minutes, help you become more aware of your body's signals and gently redirect your attention away from stressful thoughts, anchoring you in the present moment. Learning to observe your thoughts without judgment can be a powerful tool for disengaging from the cognitive aspect of stress. Emotional completion involves acknowledging and processing the feelings associated with the stressor. Instead of pushing difficult emotions away or trying to suppress them, allow yourself to feel them without judgment. This might mean sitting with feelings of anger, sadness, frustration, or disappointment. Again, talking about these feelings or journaling about them can facilitate this process. The goal isn't to wallow, but to acknowledge the emotion, understand what it's telling you, and allow it to move through you, rather than getting stuck. Sometimes, simply naming the emotion, "I am feeling overwhelmed right now," can lessen its power. Crucially, engaging in these completion strategies requires self-compassion. We need to give ourselves permission to prioritize our well-being. This means recognizing that taking time for completion isn't selfish or indulgent. It's a fundamental necessity for maintaining our health and functioning. It involves treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we would offer a loved one who is struggling. This often involves challenging the internalized messages that tell us we must always be productive, always be strong, and always put others first. A key mental shift involves identifying and challenging the musts in our lives. We often create unnecessary stress by turning preferences into demands. Thinking, "I must get this project done perfectly today," or "I must always be available for my kids," creates rigid expectations that are ripe for generating stress. By softening these musts into "I'd prefer to," or "it would be good if," we create more flexibility and reduce the pressure on ourselves. This allows for a more realistic approach to demands and reduces the likelihood of feeling like a failure when things don't go exactly as planned. Learning to set boundaries is another essential skill. This means recognizing your limits of time, energy, and emotional capacity, and communicating them clearly and kindly. It involves saying no when necessary, delegating tasks when possible, and protecting your personal time and space. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out, but rather guidelines that allow for healthy relationships and protect your own resources. When you consistently overextend yourself or fail to set boundaries, you are essentially signing yourself up for more uncompleted stress cycles. Integrating these practices into your life isn't about adding more things to your already overwhelming to-do list. It's about fundamentally shifting your approach to stress and self-care. It's about recognizing the wisdom in your body's signals and responding to them with kindness and intention. It involves small, consistent actions rather than grand, unsustainable gestures. Maybe it's deciding to take a 5-minute walk after a stressful meeting, calling a friend during your commute, or dedicating 10 minutes before bed to deep breathing or gentle stretching. It's about finding what works for you, experimenting with different strategies, and being patient with yourself. Remember those moments of pure joy, connection, or accomplishment that sustain you? The book calls these jewels. Actively seeking out and savoring these moments, even amidst stress, can help buffer against burnout. They remind you of what's important, refill your reserves, and provide a sense of meaning and purpose that can sustain you through difficult times. Cultivating these jewels, whether through hobbies, relationships, time in nature, or moments of quiet reflection, is not a luxury. It's a vital practice for resilience. Ultimately, the journey through burnout is a process of reclaiming your own well-being. It begins with understanding that the exhaustion you feel is a natural, biological response to unmanaged stress. It continues by recognizing the societal and personal patterns that contribute to leaving stress cycles incomplete. And it flourishes by intentionally implementing strategies for completion, moving your body, connecting with others, engaging your creativity, processing your emotions, practicing self-compassion, setting boundaries, and challenging unnecessary musts. By learning to listen to your body, honor its signals, and give yourself permission to complete the stress cycle, you can move away from the wall of burnout and reclaim your energy, your resilience, and your sense of self. It's about trusting that your body knows what it needs and learning how to provide it, one completed cycle at a time.